Okay, so the first step in mixing our house loaf is going to be gathering ingredients and scaling. We have pre-scaled here everything, and what we're going to do is check our poolishes. So when you make a poolish, you want to put a piece of tape at the level where the top is exactly where the poolish is mixed to, and then you have a quick reference guide for the rise. So we can see right here we've doubled. You can see on this one, we've doubled. We've scaled out our water separately, temped it. Today we're using 76-degree water. Next step, we're going to go ahead and get our water, our poolishes, and our flour into the bowl to autolyse. Now we're going to go ahead and close the mixer. And we're going to start mixing on speed 1. The goal of this is simply to incorporate all of the ingredients so that the flour can hydrate and start to develop gluten without us mixing on our own. So this is going to shorten the overall mix time and create a bread that's less oxidized than it would otherwise be. It's a good idea during this first incorporation stage to run the mixer backwards for a minute or two. So we'll go ahead and throw it into reverse. This just helps hydrate extra clumps of flour that might not get hit in the traditional forward mixing. It's also a good idea right before the mixer is finished incorporating to scrape the sides to get all the dry bits into the middle where they'll fully hydrate. You can see now everything's starting to hydrate and develop, so we're going to go ahead and stop the mixer. And we're going to let this rest for 20 minutes. All right, now that it's been 20 minutes, we're going to go ahead and add our salt and our yeast, our water too, and our cutting of levain. We'll close the lid. And mix for 2 minutes on speed 1. After that time on speed 1, we're going to start with 2 minutes on speed 2, and then we'll check our gluten development. You can see a patch that's stuck to the side of the bowl. So we're going to go ahead and scrape that down, make sure everything's mixing evenly, and restart the mixer. Now we check our dough for development. Given the way the dough shreds apart as soon as we touch it, we're going to add another section to mix 2, speed 2. So we're going to start with 30 seconds and recheck our dough. You can see the dough starting to hold together more as it mixes around. It's starting to throw long strings of dough across that middle bar, which is a good sign that we've begun to start to develop the dough. Cool. So there you can see the dough holds together a lot better. We can, if we're super careful, we can start to pull a window pane, but it doesn't pull one automatically. It doesn't stretch forever. For this dough, that's a great sign, because most of the development is going to come through a series of folds. So we're going to go ahead and pull it out of the mixer into a lightly oiled tub. We're going to mark the side with the time and the temperature the dough came off the mixer. And we're going to mark it the same way we did the poolishes, where the top of the tape is at the top level of the dough, so we can easily see when it's doubled in fermentation. Now we've got our dough into the bin. You can see it's about halfway up. Any higher than this, we'd want to go into 2 bins, but halfway is totally fine. We're going to take our tip. We're sticking the thermometer right into the center. They were at 70.7, so we're going to go ahead and write that on a piece of tape. And we're going to note the time. And now we're going to stick the tape so that the top level is right at the level of the dough. We're going to throw a cover on it, set it somewhere to ferment. It's been about 30 minutes since we pulled our dough out of the mixer and into this tub. So we're going to check it for our first fold. If you look here at the side of the bin, you can see this was the level it was at, and you can see the shadow that it's grown about 20%. That's a great sign. We're right on track. So we're going to lift the lid and give it our first fold. I'm going to dip my hands in some water. I'm going to release the edges. Dipping my hands again as I feel them start to stick. Now I'm ready to fold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up and stretch from the middle and tuck the back underneath. We call this a coil fold. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to stretch as far as the dough is going to let me go. That's going to get all the gluten both further developed and aligned. Put us in a great place to build not only strength but tension into the dough. So I'm going to lift and fold it back that way. Lift, fold it back that way. Lift, fold it back that way. I'm going to flip it around and do the same thing going the other way. Lift, that way. Lift, that way. Now, when you've done both sides that way, you're going to pick it up, turn it 90 degrees, and give it a couple more folds. So you can see we're nice and smooth, nice and strong. You saw it literally lifting the bin up as I went to fold. We're going to set it aside again to ferment for another 30 minutes, and we'll check then. It's been another 30 minutes on our house loaf, total of an hour. You can see on the side of the bin here, that we've almost doubled in size. It's a great place to do our next fold. I'm gonna go ahead and dip my hands in some water and give it one more fold. Given the strength of this dough, you can feel it as you fold, kind of fighting. You can see here, it's got a lot of elasticity. It's holding bubbles, it looks nice and developed. This could be our last fold. Now, if this was wetter, shaggier, felt more similar to our first one, I would give it one more after another 30 minutes. But for now, we're gonna cover it up, set it aside for 30 more minutes, and then we'll get into dividing. All right, now our house loaf has fully doubled in size. So we're gonna go ahead and get a little bit of flour on the bench, turn it out and start dividing. We're gonna divide it 600 grams a piece, and we're just gonna make sure we work through first to last. So the first piece we divide is the first piece we're gonna pre-shape. And we're gonna move through that sequence. We're gonna keep that the first one we shape, that's gonna be the first one we bake. We're gonna keep that top to bottom, first to last, the entire way through the process. So we'll put this little bit of flour on top. Get a little bit on the table. And let it flow out of there. While we do that, I'm going to flour our bins a little bit. Just a touch on it. So put your flour on top of this. Even it out to make our life easier. And we'll get started. So when I'm looking at this mass, I'm going to cut one even strip, about a quarter of the dough. And that's going to give me consistent sizing and help me scale faster. Work left to right. So I've got a blob on here. It's 450. I'm going to put a couple of good sized chunks on there. That's right in the realm we want to be. And I'm placing this first one, the first place that I want to appreciate it. Just right next to the legs. Okay, a little bit closer. You want to keep that in mind as you go. If the last one you divided was a little bit too small, make the next one a little bit bigger. We're going to keep this little chunk right by the scale here. That'll be what we cut off of. Back on. It's a little bit sticky, so touch more flour. Now that I've got my 8 pieces, I'm going to start pre-shaping. The first one I did is gently degas here. I'm basically folding the corners into the middle, either 4 or 3, depending on the shape of the piece. And then I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to tuck and round. I don't need to be super tight here. That's good enough. Working first to last, and the sauce to fit. So we go corners into the side. I'm sticking a little on the table, so I'm going to throw a little flour down. Corners in, tuck it, and give it just that little bit of a round. Okay, and we'll keep going. Tuck the corners in a little bit. Go. So from this stage on, this is always going to be the outside of the loaf. The top will be round. Okay. So we've got our 8 in the basket. You can see these little bubbles, little signs of life. That's a great sign. We're going to set this aside on a rack. We're going to go top to bottom. You want this one to rest for 20 minutes. That doesn't mean once you finish dividing, wait 20 minutes and then do the final shape. That means this one should sit for 20 minutes. So if it takes me 10 minutes to divide all these, I'm going to sit for 10 more and then get these going on the final shape. All right, it's been 20 minutes for our first loaves. Now we're ready to start final shaping. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that we have floured our bannetons. We can go ahead and put them into a bin like this. We're going to dust in there a mixture of bread flour and rice flour. It's going to help with the sticking. You just want to go over them really quick. Make sure you got good coverage. It's going to help to use the sifter rather than your hands because it'll have nice even non-stick and you won't stick into one side. Then what you're going to do, take our first bucket. They've relaxed into each other, but they're not, puffing together so much that it's going to be an issue for us. That's how we would know that they're moving too fast. We're going to add a decent amount of flour to them. Go ahead and flip them upside down. And wait for them to release from the bottom. Then, we'll keep our work surface pretty free of flour. Got a little pile over here in the corner in case I need a touch of flour there. And then we'll cut them apart. And we'll start to shape. Your goal here is to get as much tension as you can into the loaf without tearing it. So, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to stretch it just a little bit. And I'm going to fold over this way and over this way. It's going to help with the tension in the middle, and it's created a shape that's wider up top and more narrow at the bottom. Then what's going to happen is as we roll up, our loaf is going to get wider and wider and meet right here at our wide end. So I'm going to go up and in, set it there. Then I'm pulling back and using the table to get a little bit of extra grip on the loaf so we can stretch it. And I'm rolling all the way up, and I'm good to go. You can see the seam here, pretty well attached. You don't have to close the ends, right? We're looking for this blunt petard shape, which is going to maximize our slice profile for sandwiches and just create a really nice looking loaf at the end of the day. You don't need to do this. It's a waste of time, and it actually just pops a lot of the gas bubbles at the side. Once you have done this, you're going to go ahead and make sure your seam is up and go into your baskets. top down. Let's do a couple more of those. Let me show you one which you don't want to do. A couple of faults here. So don't beat the hell out of it. You just are destroying all the structure that we were so careful to build throughout the rest of the process. You're going to have a dense loaf at the end of the day, and one that frankly looks beat up, right? Even if I'm pretty careful in the rest of the shaping, the volume on it, the structure on the inside is going to be less than ideal. Another thing you don't want to do is stretch too much, try to get too much tension inside to the point where you're ripping the dough. If it's sticking to you excessively, that's a good sign that you're ripping the dough. So if I'm doing this, or I'm trying to get as much as I can in, and it's stuck to my fingers, I actually just ripped a lot of the gluten structure. Again, we're gonna have a dense loaf. We're gonna have a loaf that sits flat out of the oven. It doesn't have that nice tall profile that we're looking for. Just something generally subpar. And I'm gonna have to clean my hands a lot more. So don't do that. Do kind of feel where the dough's at. Right, when I'm stretching this way, I'm stretching to where I feel the dough starting to resist me, and then I'm done. Right, you see it springing back to where it wants to be. A little bit wider than it was before, but to where it wants to be. And then I'm gonna fold it. And look, the rest of this process is pretty gentle. I'm just tucking in a little bit here, and then taking the next bit, and tucking that a little bit. My fingers aren't going all the way into the side of the loaf here. They're staying just, maybe 10% in. And then I'm gonna roll it up, set it, and we're good to go. Now, when you do it that way, when you treat the dough well, and you're not getting your hands super sticky, and you're not beating the hell out of it, you can get going at a pretty decent pace. And your dough, at the end of the day, is going to thank you. What you want to avoid as you're learning to shape or practicing your shaping is extra movements. When you're doing, 100 loaves, at the end of the day, every little thing, a lot of people will do this. They'll roll it up. Even that is an extra movement, right? I didn't need to do that. They'll give it a little pat, and then they'll set it aside. That little pat is just slowing you down and making you inefficient. It's not necessary for a solid loaf. And one is, sure, not a big deal. A couple seconds here, it's fine. But at the end of the day, after you've done 100, at the end of the week after you've done 1,000, and at the end of your career after you've done 100,000, think of the time add up of that, all the waste. They could have, A, saved wear and tear on your hands, and B, saved you time. After we do this, we're going to go ahead and wheel them all into the retarder overnight. And then tomorrow morning we'll come in, we'll pull them out, and we'll get them in the oven. Now we're ready for the final step of our house loaf, the bake. So these have sat in the Boreal overnight, slowly proofing. Now they're ready to go. We're going to go ahead and load them onto the loader, give them a score, and throw them in the oven. So what you want to do is turn the baskets upside down, roughly where they're going to be. Sometimes the loaves fall out, sometimes they stick a little bit. We're going to go 3 wide by 5 deep. Now we'll pull out the baskets out. The loaf hasn't released. You kind of want to shake it a little bit. You want to be gentle at this point, right? They've got all the gas built up inside them. Create a nice structure for us. We don't want to pop any bubbles. So as I reposition them, I'm being pretty gentle. I'm lifting from the middle, not moving them very far. I'm not stretching them. Just getting them into exactly the right spot. Now we'll go through with our long and we'll score. So what we're going to do is score right down the middle. And we want to have about a 30 to 40 degree blade angle here. And we want one fluid motion. Just like that. If you have a little bit of a thing, you can go back over it. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. Cool. When we score here, let's go ahead and load this second deck up. So we load the loader. And make sure we're positioned side to side. Push it. Now, if we were going to load the second deck, we'd give it a short burst of steam, like this. Just to make sure that those ones don't dry out while we're getting the other ones into the oven. Since we're not, we'll go ahead and give it its full load of steam. So in this hypothetical scenario, if we were loading the second deck, we'd wait, we'd fill it all up, giving it just that shot on the first one. And then once it's all full, make sure your dampers are closed, your doors are closed. Go ahead and hold it down. You want to see some steam start to come out of the doors a little bit. There. Now we're free to proceed with loading. We'll go ahead and bake them about 30-35 minutes. And then we'll add 10 minutes once we open the dampers by pulling those red levers. We'll unload them, ready for sale.